So you know that old saying about not judging a book by its cover? Yeah, well, this is the cover of Mystery of the Druids. I think we're done here. All right, so that's a little bit unfair. I mean, it wouldn't be the first game to have had deeply awful box art, but then turn out to be a really interesting, clever, extremely cool game. Toonstruck, Planescape Torment, Mega Man. Maybe Mystery of the Druids is secretly a fantastic adventure that just had the misfortune of making itself a laughingstock with this guy, and in so doing prevented anyone from seeing its true glory. So, is it? No! Alright, I'll stop doing that, I promise. But wow! I mean, I'm not sure I'd say that Mystery of the Druids is one of the worst adventures I've ever played, but then I've played a lot of bad adventures. It's certainly a contender, saved only by being so bad that it's hilarious, as you'd about expect from a non-strategy game published by CDV, the digital typhoid Marys of games like Jack Keen and Lula 3D. Now, on the development side, it was created by a German company called House of Tales, one of the first after the 7th or so Death of Adventure games to try and revive the genre. There's a few reasons why you've probably never heard of them, though this exchange from their second game, The Moment of Silence, does sum it up quite well.
I'm considering to just go over and ask if everything's all right.
To those felons? Maybe that's not such a good idea. It's better not to get involved in any kind of stories. Who knows what kind of people they are? Maybe they're terrorists.
Criminals. Terrorists. There's a woman and a kid over there.
You don't know that.
The only thing I know is that my neighbors just went through a terrible ordeal. And I also know that I do care.
Yeah, translation is tricky, but setting a game in a foreign country is just asking for double trouble, especially something like this that wants Stonehenge to be this isolated place of murder and mystery, when in fact it's next to a busy main road and there's a gift shop. It kind of takes the edge off this being a Broken Sword style thriller, and that's even before you get to this guy and his many, many internet friends. But let's be fair and check this out, and after all, how bad could it be if CDV proudly presents it? Proudly! They wouldn't lie about something like that. And to give it credit, this is quite a nicely atmospheric intro. I mean, you've got to feel sorry for this guy, who clearly rushed to get a good position only to end up stuck behind a pillar, but aside from that, this all seems pretty well organised. The only thing that could possibly go wrong is if someone maybe had an accident while lighting up a sneaky cigarette and... oh shit. And now we have evil babies. This is probably not going to be the toughest boss fight in the history of the world when it finally comes round. But all that's for later. For now, we have to meet our hero, a proud detective of Scotland Yard. Spoiler, they will not come out of this looking good. In any way.
Now get out of here! Get the hell out of my sight! And if I have any more trouble with you, you'll be dishing out parking tickets before long. And that's a promise, Lowry! Oh, and here's my good friend Halligan, another one of the invaluable detectives of our glorious murder squad. Don't just stand there gaping, come in. I'm glad you could make it. After all, you're a busy man, aren't you? Now look here, Detective Halligan. I've got used to being surrounded by a bunch of incompetent, half-baked blockheads, but your smart, well-dressed colleague Lowry has just earned himself the golden badge of stupidity. Halligan, we've got a bit of a problem. We've had an innocent man locked up in jail. Regrettably, he was killed in prison before we could correct our mistake. Unfortunate affair. And now we've got this lunatic killer running around all over London. We have to make sure that at least this oversight is put right. Your clear-up rate so far ought to be sufficient evidence that there's no point in asking you to clear up anything more than a common bicycle theft. But this does happen to be the murder squad. I am the chief of this department. All I have for choice is that blockhead Lowry and you.
Okay, Chief. What do you want me to do?
Yes, this is Brent Halligan, and oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I'm not sure if he's actually a detective or just a hobo who stumbled in one day and was able to pass for one, but Sherlock Holmes he is not. But before we get to see the true depths of his incompetence, just take a moment to listen to this music. Doesn't it just scream Scotland Yard? Is that the sound of someone just hammering randomly on keys? Well, that's okay. That's how most of the puzzles were designed. As for Halligan, though, he's, well, you'll see. His office is a bomb site, his personal life is a shambles, his socks have randomly wound up in his filing cabinets, I don't even want to know the story behind that one, and his taste is... Look, no taste justifies having that picture on the wall where other people are going to see it. You'd almost think he's trying just a little bit too hard to be English with a capital E.
Al's Pizza Palace makes the best pizza in the whole of London.
Wait, what was that?
Unfortunately, there's no pizza in there anymore.
Good grief. No wonder his colleagues hate his guts.
I know that you'll say no, but I have to ask for your help.
You do actually need help, Halligan. But not from me. Try a social worker. Well?
Do you know how to operate the copying machine?
Yes, I do.
And will you tell me?
Just guess.
Yes?
Nearly right. No would have been the correct answer, but you nearly got it, old boy.
Well, there's no reason to stay where we're not wanted. The setup of this game is there's been a series of strange ritual murders, dubbed the skeleton murders, in a way that kind of suggests the police haven't been particularly quick off the mark here. In fact, as we joined the game, the whole thing has been a bit of a disaster. With them arresting the wrong man, who subsequently got murdered in jail.
Well, all right, these things happen.
Thanks for that, Halligan. Having scientific advisors who can't distinguish gender from bones in a way that most people could probably manage after seeing an episode of Bones. And apparently the police have loosened up their entry requirements enough to allow cannibals to openly join the force.
Good morning, officer.
Good morning, Detective. I hope you've had a good breakfast. The sight over there is not very appetizing.
Here's our first crime scene, which I like to think of as the hidden object game murder for the way that it's been so carefully integrated into it. Halligan, of course, immediately rushes in and starts yoinking bones out of it, and also some burnt grass, because keeping crime scenes for the forensic guys is for wusses. Besides, who needs Temperance Brennan on your back when your forensic lab has Bill Nye the Science Guy?
What do you think about this?
This is grass, Halligan.
Do you notice anything about it?
The grass looks slightly burnt, I'd say.
Case closed! Oh shit, wait, the bones. Well, luckily Bill here is good enough to be able to not only judge the sex of the victim from the thigh bone, to me the pelvis or something would seem more useful, but to psychically assess it from a distance while it's still in Halligan's pocket. I think we might be seeing why Scotland Yard got the wrong guy so quickly the last time. Could we not get someone a bit more competent to head up this investigation? You know, like maybe Hopkins FBI? Or Lula 3D? Well, Bill's suggestion is that if we want to know more, and by that I mean anything at all, we should go and speak to an old anthropologist friend of his in Oxford about the bone that we collected. Okay. And so, an hour's drive later, Halligan arrives to find that a smarter person would have phoned ahead and found out that it was already closed for renovation. So now what? Well, just because the museum is closed to guests doesn't mean there's nobody still working there, right? So let's do the adventure thing and wander around a bit and see if there's anything that might help us. I mean, not much immediately springs to mind. I mean, to the right there's a phone booth, but that's not going to be much use for now because Halligan was an even bigger idiot before the game started than he spends most of it being. I know, I don't quite believe it either, but, you know, it's true. Just check out this conversation with his rival, fellow detective Lowry.
Could you lend me some change?
You haven't found your wallet, have you? Well, sorry, Halligan, but this is Scotland Yard, not the Bank of England.
The Bank of England is the central clearing bank, Lowry. You can't draw any money there.
And elsewhere in Oxford, there's just a sad-looking tramp. Of course, Halligan, being our hero, is very sympathetic.
Just leave it. I've lost everything. Everything. No money, no flat, no future. I'm finished. Simply finished.
Have you tried working?
Listen, mate.
But wait. Wait. A phone booth on the right, which we can't use because we don't have any money. A tramp to the left, with a few measly coins in his hat. Warning. What follows is one of the most infamous puzzles in crap adventure game history. We are talking cat hair moustache level. You have been warned. Yes, Halligan, a Scotland Yard detective, is about to steal money from a tramp to make a phone call. This is a thing that is about to happen. Someone was sitting there designing this game and they thought, hey, I've got an idea for a puzzle, and it turns out they were wrong. But wait, it's even worse than you think, because it's not as if we can just swipe the coins from his hat and then you run away giggling. First, we have to drive all the way back to London, where... just watch.
Something I wanted to ask you, Chris. What do those flasks contain?
Oh, you mean those on the shelves? They contain all sorts of different chemicals I need for my work. Indicator solutions, alcohol, things like that.
Why do you need alcohol for your work?
Certainly not in order to drink it, Halligan. We use alcohols as solvents. Most types are poisonous anyway.
You've got a great job, Chris. Masses of alcohol and everything legal.
Nonsense, Halligan. Do you think we spend all day getting drunk with medical alcohol? Why don't you just try the stuff?
Sure, no problem.
Here, Brent, to your health. What's up? Go ahead, try it. You won't get one of these so often.
All right, here we go. Cheers.
To your health, Brent.
An interesting aroma, isn't it?
Brent, aren't you feeling very well? Brent, are you sure you're okay?
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Now, most people would take this as an indicator that this was a really stupid thing to do and never think about doing it ever again. Halligan, however, thinks, hey, idea, a little medicinal alcohol, a touch of apple juice for taste, and presto, everything a noble Scotland Yard detective needs to poison a beggar and steal his money to make a phone call. Now, you're probably thinking, damn. But wait, you know what makes this worse? And yes, this gets worse. It's not that this involves at least 1 2-hour round trip to get the alcohol. No, it's not even the fact that Halligan is so broke that getting a few coins to make a phone call counts as a puzzle. It's not even that after going through all of this, all that he learns is that Professor Turner is away. No. It's the fact that at Scotland Yard, you know, where he went to get the alcohol, he has a desk phone. I'm sorry, what was that? The single fan of Mystery of the Druids complaining there? That's all explained?
Haven't you got your own telephone, Halligan?
I just wanted to try something.
And what, if I might ask? Try to get a dialing tone?
How do you know that?
Someone in accounts has had a look at the department's telephone bills, Halligan, and you're the record holder by a very, very wide margin. Your phone will only work internally from now on. Janet told me that when we went to the cinema. Where do you keep calling to anyway? The Caribbean?
I don't think that's got anything to do with you, Lowry.
Oh, yes, okay, of course, sure. It's none of my business. But if you think that you can make your phone calls from here, you're dead wrong.
No! No points, no forgiveness. Bad game in every sense.
Yes, right. I just forgotten it.
Anyway, back at the museum, again, he finds out that while the professor he needs to see is away, his daughter Melanie is around, and conveniently also an anthropologist.
It is very urgent.
Now, to give Halligan credit, he does immediately come up with the idea of, maybe you could help me if your father isn't here.
Yes, just one.
And then, of course, he bones her. Yup, he gives her FEMA. FEMA all through the night, he gives her FEMA. And she studies it intensely. And even becomes playable.
You wait a moment.
Now, Melanie is certainly more competent at her job than Halligan, though I do have to question certain elements of her specialisation. First, it's sacrificial rites, creepy. Then you find out that magazines like these are her favourites. And unfortunately, this is one of those annoying puzzles where you're somehow expected to be an expert in a field that you clearly aren't, as well as the room being full of random useless crap. All made worse when, having sliced off a piece of bone and discovered it was just cut with a sickle and there's gold residue in a crack and all that kind of stuff, Melanie's actual findings are just, oh yeah, I saw an article about that, you know, in her magazine. Expert in her field indeed. Cutting all of this stuff down, the shocking discovery is that the murders are strangely reminiscent of Druidic ritual rites. Or at least it would probably be shocking in a game not called, you know, Mystery of the Druids. Needless to say, the two of them decide to team up and try and solve this together, and maybe squeeze in a little bit of sexual tension as time permits.
Mr. Halligan? I believe I've found something interesting about your bone.
A feeling not wholly unfamiliar to you.
Cue the boring exposition section of the game, in which we have to go and see a bloke called Arthur Blake, and everything is explained surprisingly early on to anyone not distracted by his animations. I am not going to put you through this, but it's about 7 hours of talking, give or take, which boils down to this. The ancient Druids in 1000 AD put their power into 5 babies, the inheritors, who have since then been stealing life force and planning for the end of the world. Sadly, they're not still doing this as babies, because that would have been the absolute best thing ever. Luckily, we can cut this down pretty easily. There's a magic amulet which will right royally screw up the Druids' plans, blah blah blah, we're done here. Halligan, of course, immediately buys into every word of this, and then the man who had to poison a beggar for phone money is casually skipping across to France to look for a millennia-old MacGuffin. As you do. Only, since they couldn't find anyone who could do a French accent, they didn't bother.
What do you know about the castle?
Not much. It's supposed to have belonged to a rich family around here many centuries ago. As a child, I used to play in the ruins with my friends, but it's not really safe to go walking around in the rubble.
Pierre says you're from Carmore, like he is. Is that true?
Yes, that's right. I grew up here. As a youngster, I wanted to be a fisherman and used to work on my father's trawler. Later, I went to Naval College to become a captain of the Merchant Navy of France. I have a small house at the end of the road, just behind Francois' Bistro.
Mon Dieu. It's even worse when you find that the main character here's whole puzzle revolves around him being incredibly fussy and proud of his French heritage, yet still talks like this. Seriously, I'd say this was phoned in, but I dread to think how many beggars would have died to do that. And while we're on the subject, I'm pretty sure that French castles don't have names like Schloss von Carmors. It's not even close to the German border. Anyway, it's not particularly clear what we're looking for in France, except that it's stuff, and somewhere in the stuff there will probably be a magic amulet. Cue lots of incredibly boring conversations about fishing and a spooky local castle, not all of which unlock properly because this game hates you. Well, the upshot of this is that you end up at this ruined castle in search of that amulet that's been missing for over 1,000 years and searched for by an all-knowing, all-powerful druidic cult for which it is the only thing that can shatter their apocalyptic plans. But hey, you're feeling lucky. A little salt here, a quick bone there, and boom! Druidic magic is really that easy, even when you aren't a druid, and have no reason to suppose this will work. And have had no training, or at least none that counts.
How can salt destroy a whole castle?
Through the magic of the Druids. Salt is a destructive element. It corrodes, it decomposes, it parches. It can make people die of thirst.
Yeah, there's no jump at all from salt makes you thirsty to salt will destroy a castle. This being Mystery of the Druids, though, salt isn't just something you find on every restaurant table. No, if you want some, first you have to catch a cat in a scarf to knock a fisherman's bait into the water so he'll leave his rod so you can steal it and combine it with a bucket and scrape some off the sides of a ferry. Why do I play these f***ing games? Well, anyway, there's the amulet, so that means the world is saved, right? We'll just leave it here where it absolutely won't be stolen, and oh god damn it, Halligan, you complete ass. Okay, this could be worse. There's still a chance at least. I mean, the thief is still on this boat, and we are supposedly a trained Scotland Yard detective. We just have to work out the culprit before we get back to England, and they have a chance to run away and...
Blast it. The thief must still be on board, but we're pulling into the harbour. I'll never catch him now.
Well, okay, look, it could be worse. At least now we can use the full resources of Scotland Yard to continue this investigation, and this should be no trouble. Unless, of course, the boss has somehow realised that all of his detectives are a bunch of incompetent beggar-poisoning fools who are honestly better kept as far away from law and order as possible.
Halligan, into my office at once!
Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good.
When do you expect to come up with results?
I'm getting there, Chief. But it takes time.
Takes time? Takes time? Will I ever get to hear anything else from a detective? Where the heck have you been, Halligan?
You'll get a report at the end of the week.
The end of the week? Why not at the end of the month or at the end of the year? I want the results on my desk tomorrow morning, Halligan. And now, I want to know where you've been all this time.
You'll find out when you read the report I'm going to write.
Don't be impertinent, Detective. As your chief, I'm entitled to ask you about the results of investigations and your proceedings whenever I like.
Yes, Chief, of course.
That sounds better. Otherwise, I could have you write a report about every single step of your proceedings, and I think you know that.
Very well, then. I was visiting an expert on Druids.
You were what? Halligan, have you lost your marbles? You're not supposed to be indulging in your hobbies. You're supposed to be solving the skeleton murders.
Is that all, Chief?
No, that is not all. One of the phone calls this morning was from the 4th District in Oxford.
Uh-huh. And?
A beggar has been to see them. He claimed that somebody had first put him to sleep and then robbed him. And do you know who that person was? No? A man who calls himself Detective Halligan! Our colleagues looked into the Central Personal Database and guess what? They found a man by the name of Detective Halligan. And he works for my department. What do you say to that?
When did you receive the phone call from our colleagues?
Oh, less than half an hour ago. Have you any idea how embarrassed I was about the affair? The colleague I talked to said that the beggar still had some of the substance he'd been knocked out with. Medical alcohol with apple juice. Halligan, please tell me you didn't do it.
I had nothing to do with it, Chief. Honestly.
Well, I hope so, for your benefit. From now on, I expect you to start looking into the case at hand.
Okay, Chief. I read you.
Indeed? Excellent, Detective. Then get out and do your job. And, Halligan, if I should hear that you are conducting your investigations in any dubious or illegal way, I'll take you off the case immediately.
Understood, Chief.
I cannot argue this. But, let's give Halligan some credit. He did at least try to drink that alcohol himself first, and he checked that it was probably survivable. I mean, it's not as if he ever actively tries to put civilians in grave danger, just on a casual whim.
One more thing, Mr. Blake.
Yes?
I get the impression this business could get pretty dangerous from now on.
Yes. Very likely, Mr. Halligan.
It may be safer for both of us if we let someone else in on the matter. Please call Melanie Turner in Oxford and tell her the whole story.
Yes. Okay. Well, all of this gets Brent the name of a spooky group called The Circle, which frankly should be ashamed of itself for not having come up with a better name in over 1,000 years. Now, tracking this down presumably only narrows things down to about, 74,000 potential suspects. But since only one of those is run by an aristocrat, I think we all know where we're going next. Anyway, before rushing over there, let's at least do one competent thing in this game and update Melanie on the plans, just in case anything should happen here. I mean, who better to have your back than an anthropologist?
Yes? Who's there?
Is that Lord Sinclair?
No, sir. I'm sorry. I am his lordship's butler.
Scotland Yard. Please open the door.
I regret that his lordship does not receive beggars, salesmen, and police officers as a matter of principle, sir.
Oh, poor Lord Sinclair. Don't you realise what you've just done? You've just put a locked door in the way of an adventure game character. Bad move, sir. Bad move.
How do you do, Mr. Halligan? How nice of you to visit us.
You know my name?
Certainly. Lord Sinclair has been expecting you.
He has? Is that boss of yours some kind of psychic or what?
Why don't you ask him that yourself? Let's go.
Mr. Halligan, it is a great pleasure to meet you in person at long last.
The pleasure's mine. Would you mind telling your charming pet gorilla here to point his damn pistol somewhere else?
Please forgive us this precautionary measure, Mr. Halligan. I happen to be a distrustful man. Jack.
Lord Sinclair, now that we've met, there are a few questions I'd really like to ask you.
Certainly, certainly. After dinner I will answer any questions you deign to ask me. Until then, please be my guest. Jack, please be good enough to show our guest to his chamber.
You do not seem to be quite aware of the situation you are in, Lord Sinclair. I'm a detective from Scotland Yard. I don't want to have dinner with you. I'm here because of a series of murders in which you are a prime suspect.
With all due respect, Mr. Halligan, I took you for a wiser man than that. If anyone here is unaware of the situation they are in, you are. I have asked you to be my guest at dinner. Please don't disappoint me by refusing. Otherwise, I will have to ask Jack here to persuade you to stay in his own way.
I understand. I'm to stay here voluntarily, because if I don't, you'll force me. Is that it?
I'm glad we've settled that. Now, if you would please follow my friend Jack, he will show you to your room. We will discuss everything else in detail later, over dinner.
Let's go.
Okay, so this looks bad, but come on, he's not necessarily an evil druid. I mean, look, his house seems okay. There's a bowl of fruit over there for guests, a little cultured plant life to add to the mood. I don't see anything here that even looks particularly sinister, except, okay, yes, so there's that. I think it's time to start the escape bit immediately. Okay, let's see, how are we going to do this? Alright, so we've got a locked door, we've got a locked window. No real help there. The plant, we could throw the plant through the window, but I'm gonna assume we're too high up. That's not gonna work. Let's see, adventure game. No. Oh, they wouldn't. Oh, even a game this shitty wouldn't have gone that low as to have the guard leave the key in the lock just so that, you know, we could, with the painting and the nail and the pushing it and the... Dear adventure game developers everywhere, stop doing this puzzle, 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 stop doing this puzzle! I have taken my pills. I feel much better now.
Hey,
and it's time for Halligan to finally see his enemy in their full glory. My God, that's horrible. Clearly he's not going to take this sitting down. He is going to jump right up there and kick their robed asses back to 1000 AD. He is not going to let anything stop him. He is going to rise up and become the hero that we all knew he was going to be. But not before the pudding course, obviously, because that would just be rude.
Well, Mr. Halligan, I don't believe I have introduced you to the gentleman of my club yet. This is General Myers of the British Army. Next to him is Bishop Stevenson. The Earl of Sutcliffe, one of the Queen's closest advisors. And the gentleman sitting beside you is Mr. Smothers of the Worldwide Foods Corporation. I'm sure you're curious to learn what our club is all about. But I would suggest you have a bite to eat first. You look pale. You see, Mr. Halligan, you must know we have been following your investigations into these, shall we say, deaths in London for some time. I expect your experience in the park will have convinced you that we are, to a certain degree, responsible for these incidents. As you may have noticed, the meat we are eating at this meal has a rather unique flavour. It is human flesh, Mr. Halligan. This flesh is the source of life force. It grants us strength and power. You will soon discover the incomparable feeling of power for yourself. It will be grander than any feeling you have ever felt. Very soon now, when the day of the ritual's completion has come, our power will be perfect. Then it will be time for the curse that will put an end to the wretched hustle and bustle of this world and make room for something grand and new, a world ruled by Druids. I must admit your investigations had us worried for a moment, Mr. Halligan. We had even made plans to put a stop to them by arranging a little accident. But you are a very lucky man. You will witness the great day yourself, and you will be there on the right side. For by eating this flesh, You have become one of us. Welcome to the circle, Mr. Halligan.